our 1:30 edition of Golden Black Live. And we're fortunate, as we always are in the show, to have good guests. Tom Dienhart, heck, he's on every week with us. But Seth Morales, a man that needs no introduction in the history of Purdue football. We'll talk to Seth as well. I want to thank our sponsors for Golden Black Live. And, of course, that is Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. Did you ever make it there when you were in school, Seth?
We did. I used to roll the Triple X with Kyle Orton every Friday before a game. Yeah.
And what was your favorite? Did you have a favorite? Did you do breakfast or?
We would definitely do breakfast. Kyle would do like 2 extra plates. I mean, he got after it. I was still not as I couldn't wolf it down like he did. So I did a basic standard breakfast.
Well, we'll have to push for a Seth Morales food item before long, but maybe one that's got under 500 calories. That'll be good.
There you go. I like it.
But I want to also thank Hilton Garden Inn. When tomorrow's a big day, State HDI tonight. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com, and Trent will be doing his high school game of the night somewhere tonight. And guys, we're all in Indiana, I assume, doing the show. Well, Tom actually is a state or so over, but it is dang warm out here. Could you imagine playing a game tomorrow or even a game today, Seth, and 10th of October, and it's about 85 degrees.
Yeah, it's like an Indian summer. I mean, it's fantastic. You got to soak these moments up. But yeah, you'd be probably cramping up in October, which never happens. But grateful. I'll take the weather. We're gonna try to get outside later today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll start with you're known for a lot of things, but in Purdue fans' annals, that October 20 years ago, and it started October 7th with a comeback win over Michigan. You go to Northwestern and you get the job done there in very impressive fashion. You get a good bounce and a big play by Craig Terrell and Ashante Woodyard at Wisconsin. You had a big touchdown catch in that game, a 78-yarder. People forget that, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that was my first too. My 21st birthday, my first touchdown at Purdue, and yeah, it was big catch, third quarter.
Yeah, things were not looking great at that point, and you teamed up with that guy. You made Drew Brees famous, which is good.
Yeah.
And then of course the next week, October the 28th, and the win over Ohio State, and we'll get into that. But take me through that preparation that month, because after you lose to Penn State, there were doubts. I mean, there certainly were doubts. You'd lost a game at Notre Dame you really shouldn't have lost either, and you look at that, and what did that take to get through that gauntlet and have the month that will forever be remembered in Purdue history?
This is great. I got the little guy in here asking me about the Legos. Hey, go talk to Mom.
Sure, guys.
He's welcome on the show. We can't pay him any retainer, though. That's the only thing.
Okay, come back later. I think
and our obese cat may show up here too, so don't worry about it. So yeah, anyway. So what did it take to get through week by week?
I think you nailed it. Penn State, we lost to Notre Dame. I remember Coach Chaney was just in this like horrible mood after I think it was the Penn State game. And you just didn't feel like we were going to turn the corner that season. And then we got into that October run, which was really special. We had that win at Michigan, or at home against Michigan. And so I think we just kind of took a step at a time. You had 3 great teams in Michigan, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. And when we were able to knock those 3 out, man, you felt like the momentum was there. But man, it didn't feel like it early on with those 2 early losses to Penn State and Notre Dame, but grateful we turned the corner.
Yeah, Seth, I'm always curious about people's backstories. And how do you end up playing wide receiver at Purdue? I know you're at Butler, but take me back even to high school a little bit, your experience there. Were you recruited by anybody else out of high school? What happened to Butler, and why Purdue?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I love the context, because how did you get from not being recruited at Butler to Purdue? I was fortunate enough. We had a really good high school football team, but we had the runner-up for Mr. Football. He was a running back, and we ran the ball a crap ton. And I didn't catch a lot of passes. I caught like 30 balls my senior year, so we didn't throw it a lot. So didn't have a lot of recruiting activity from that standpoint. I ended up getting recruited to Cornell, got accepted into there, and then I got one full ride to Eastern Illinois. And had I taken that opportunity with Eastern, I would have been playing with Tony Romo, which was kind of cool. So switch gears. I had a full ride academically to Butler. I knew that all the big schools kind of pulled back late. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go do my thing here locally. I love Butler University. And so I show up at Butler and have some success early on as a freshman. I started and led the team in receiving and touchdowns. And then it was Pete Quinn who really kind of opened the door for me. He got a hold of Greg Olson, got some tape of mine and shared it. And I remember even Coach Tiller was discouraging me from coming up. But I had watched that game against Kansas State in the Alamo Bowl the year before. This is 98. And
Yeah.
I saw some guys dropping some passes, wide receivers. I was like, you know what? I mean, I could go out there and maybe catch a few of those. And so I told myself, you know what? I'm going to transfer. I'm going to make my mark. I love what Purdue's doing with that offense. I love the quarterback. I love their story. My parents were both Purdue grads. So Pete Quinn, some tape, Coach Olson, and then Coach Sumlin was great because he was a walk-on himself at Purdue. He understood what he was, an indie guy. So it was just, I think it kind of aligned for me.
Yeah, it was Kevin Sumlin from Buff. Now I'm drawing a blank. What high school?
Yeah, so I went to Lawrence Central, but yeah.
Oh, so, okay. Yeah, he was a Brebeuf guy. You were Lawrence. I guess I didn't know that. I tried to make myself look smart here and go to a Dropbox and look at the 2000 roster and it says Indianapolis Butler University. So I knew that, but I didn't know Lawrence Central. But you look at that. You had that. And Pete Quinn's opened his share of doors for a lot of people. And one thing good about Pete that we've all learned, he doesn't take no for an answer. So that's a good thing in terms of that. But you had that chance to come in and play. You return kicks a little bit early on as well. Take me through that first few days of practice and just getting aligned in West Lafayette and making your way into the rotation.
I remember walking in my first day and seeing Aiken Adele in the weight room. I was like, I have no business being here. And we got out onto the field and we ran our 40s for kind of the rookie kind of incoming camp day. And I ran a pretty fast 40. I ran a 4.46. I remember Coach Sumlin looking at me like, oh, this kid can run. And so I made a few plays early on in camp. And for me, I think it was just trying to build on my confidence. I didn't think I could, start and have an impact right away, but it was pretty awesome being there as a sophomore, and I had transferred, and so I didn't have the ability to play right away. NCAA rules put me on the sideline for a year, but Coach Sumlin came up to me right before we were going to play Dante Culpepper in Central Florida, and this is when I was on scout team and I couldn't play. He's like, "You be starting this week. You be starting as a true sophomore had you have eligibility," and so that's all I needed. That affirmation really got me through that first season at Purdue. And then it just, I had a really good spring practice. I was newcomer of the year in the spring. And then the fall camp is when it really kind of turned on. And someone gave me that opportunity. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Seth, that for the 2000 season, you had 35 catches, which was a career high for you during your career, 556 yards, couple touchdowns, almost 16 yards per catch. Pretty good stats. But of course, we all like to flash back again to the point Alan opened with, the catch, Seth, the immortal catch by you. And I'm curious, we all know the outcome, but are there any fun little stories on the lead up? Did you have any inkling in the huddle that you had a chance to get that pass? I mean, kind of talk us through maybe the pre-play and maybe some backstory that people really don't know about.
Yeah, I mean, it's still vivid right there, right in front of me. I think about it all the time. There's a couple things that pop out to me. The first is, Drew throws that interception to Doss. He takes it to the house, or they score on the next play. And when we're in the huddle, we call a slant pass. This is after Clopton returns the kickoff a decent amount of yards. And there's a pass thrown to me. It was a slant route, and their corner, I think his name was Clements, really good player. He knocks it down. So first pass went to me, and then Drew calls the play, twins right, 74X Z pull. And I'm like, all right, crap. I'm basically running a skinny post and I'm a decoy because I'm the fourth option. And, you look at that play, and I look back now and I realize just how special it was. I look at how how talented our offensive line was. They hold up and just create this pocket for Drew. And you got all these guys that go to the league and have good like NFL careers.
Yeah.
And then you have Drew being who Drew is, and he's disciplined going through his reads. And, you know, Vinny and John are on Stanford are on one side of the field, and, you know, their routes are covered up. And then A.T. Simpson crosses in front of Mike Doss, and he sucks in on it. But it was one of those things that I think for me, walk-on underachiever, I wasn't as fast as Vinny. I wasn't as long as John. I was always probably the worst receiver out there, but I was going to probably be out there the most because I stock blocked like a champ and I hustled. And so that was kind of my claim to fame was I'm going to finish every play with excellence. And, you know, I ran my ass off. I ran a skinny post, blown coverage, right place, right time. But hell, I still caught it, which was key. But I mean, that was indicative of such a scrappy, you know, offensive line, a Hall of Fame quarterback, two great receivers that went to the pros that, you know, threw the coverage elsewhere, and then AT doing the crosser. So it was just a good opportunity for me.
Do you ever dream about, still have dreams about, oh my God, I didn't catch that thing? Or
no, I don't.
No. Do you ever have that?
No, that would be terrible.
I mean, it was, you caught it in stride, so it wasn't like a fair catch. You had to make a play to catch the ball. That was a beautifully thrown ball. But so you don't ever have that nightmare that you wake up that, oh, wait, I dropped that thing.
That would be terrible if I did. I think the one thing that comes to my mind is I was just like, don't drop the ball as I was running in the air, and it was like everything like paused. It was under the lights. It was late in the early evening, late evening. And it was just one of those things where just like things went quiet, you catch it, and all of a sudden you just hear the crowd erupt. And it was a feeling that for me, when I crossed the goal line, I was like, oh, this is why I'm here. This is why I had to go through this process of, you know, not being recruited, you know, coming on as a scout team guy, and then finally making my play. It was like, oh, this is why I had to go through all this. I get it now. And so I was just grateful for the opportunity.
What'd you do that night, Seth?
Oh man, I think I had too much fun. It was it was near Halloween, so I think there was Halloween parties, bars, parties. Probably a little too late, but had a good time. I had a girlfriend who was a cheerleader. She, I think, walked me home that night. So that was just a memory that I'll never forget. But yeah, we had some fun. I remember Coach Tiller saying, you know, it's Miller time, and there was kind of that, hey, we can go cut it loose after we had that game won.
Yeah, and then go ahead. Tom.
Yeah, and then Seth, then you got to go to the Rose Bowl. Could you even fathom that 3 years before when you're lining up in the Butler Bowl, wide receiver for the Bulldogs? 3 years later, you're going to be in Pasadena playing on New Year's Day and the granddaddy of them all. I mean, you lived a life we can make a movie out of.
Yeah, you know, I tell people a lot of times, like, I always prided myself on being the worst player on the field and just being fortunate to be in these situations. And so I look at that story of how I got to that point. I mean, we had a special team, the 2000 Rose Bowl team. I mean, if you take a photo of that team, the team photo, so many of those guys went to the league. We had all those young guys on the team that played defense, like Stu Schwager, Landon Johnson, and all those guys that went to the league afterwards. But man, I just think it was timing for me, because obviously my senior year didn't finish with a bang, but my sophomore and junior year kind of hit that right time where they needed a Z receiver who was more of a kind of a third or fourth option who could make some plays every once in a while. And man, I fit the bill. So I'm just grateful for being a part of such a great team.
Yeah, and that's an interesting experience, because 2001 did not go exactly as you planned. You didn't see the field as much as I recall, and in the ball, you didn't have the court. You didn't have number 15 throwing it down the field either, though you had Kyle Orton in the second half of that year. But what'd you learn from that? Because you were at the highest high, and not that you didn't do anything your senior year, but it wasn't quite the same. And
yeah.
What was the takeaway from that?
That was probably the single biggest thing in my life, was that moment of being benched my senior year, and Ray Williams coming in as a freshman. And I remember Tiller wanted to get the new class, the new blood in to get their experience. And man, you talk about like being on top of this mountain and then just like coming down to base camp. It was a huge blow to my ego, but what it taught me was when you're having success, like all those things that got me there, my first year at Purdue, being on scout or being under recruited, that chip on my shoulder, was my competitive advantage. That, hey, underdog, I'm going to prove myself, and I lost that. I got complacent. I didn't work as hard as I did my first 2 years compared to my last year at Purdue, and man, that's a lesson that I've taken into life going forward now. And it's like, man, thank you for, like, that sucked. I hate it. I was pissed at Coach Tiller. But, when I saw him later in life, when he passed a few years ago, I got to see him out in Wyoming. And I was able to kind of tie up some of those loose ends and thank him for some of that tough love. He wasn't an easy guy to love sometimes, but man, I was grateful for that because that's shaped my life going forward.
Got to keep the eye of the tiger, right, Seth?
Yeah, man, you can't get complacent, man. When you're up top and you're not, you don't have this God-given like physical talent, or you have these gifts that are different. You really got to stay sharp and got to keep it, man.
Hey, give us an idea what's going on with you currently. I got a chance to speak with you over a year ago after you spoke to the football team. You've got your organization's the Morales Group. Sort of tell viewers what that's all about, Seth.
Yep. So we're in recruiting, not football players, but people that go to work. And we staff and recruit a lot of manufacturing and logistics jobs. And we have around 4,000 employees that work for us. We have about 200 corporate team members here in Indianapolis. And we have 4,000 spread out throughout the state, down in Kentucky, Texas, and North Carolina. And I started the company with my dad. My dad was the founder. I jumped on board as employee number 5. So he started it right when I was finished with Purdue football. And he was a Purdue engineer. He had never been an entrepreneur. And he started this company at the age of 50. And, we've grown it to about 150 million in revenue. And it's been fun just building, better futures for our teammates here in the city. And it's a lot like running a team, but you've got a lot of people all over the place working for you. So that's what we do at a high level.
Yeah, people they always say business is great if you didn't have to deal with personnel. Well, you deal with if you didn't have to deal with people, you get to do that. Now, one key person you got to deal with, and you can say you've taught him everything he knows, but you had an intern last semester that might get some people's attention.
Yeah, so we had Rondell Moore as our intern, and he came in. He's got a selling management background, so they're the major that he's in, and we brought him in right at the beginning of COVID, which was really funky. I was looking forward to having him in the offices, but man, he plugged in right away. We would have weekly one-on-ones, Rondell and I, and then he would meet with our sales team. One funny story with Rondell, so we were trying to get him acclimated to sales and marketing. So we got him on the phone and he was doing some cold calling. And man, our sales manager got him on one call and he froze up and he didn't know what to say, but he got better over time. He's a really sharp dude. So he's got really good insights. He did this capstone project for us where he presented to the executive team and just some really good learnings. He had some actual takeaways where he challenged us to do some things differently. And man, it resonated with our team. So great experience. We've stayed in touch. When I spoke to the team a couple of years ago, he was the first guy that came up to me in that January session where I spoke to the team, and he was like, "Hey, I want to work for you." And he's like, "I'd love to intern. I'd love to hear more about what you do." So he was just a kid that was always on it. And you can tell he's got things buttoned up, and I'm glad he's back. So
yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, he's a planner. That's an impressive thing to say because he's going to have a career in this sport for a while, but not forever like anybody else. All right, you've dealt with COVID. You've watched. Can you put yourself in the shoes of these kids now? You're trying to get ready. You had your season delayed. Thought it was going to be postponed, and now you got a game here in a couple of weeks. Hard to walk in their shoes, but what do you think? What's going to be the important detail that will help a very talented receiving core with Rondale Moore, David Bell on down the line. But what is it going to help? What do they really need to do to be successful starting here in a couple of weeks against the Iowa Hawkeyes?
It's a great question, Alan. I spoke to the entire student athlete core group at the beginning of this school year. There were 400 student athletes on a Zoom call like this.
Yeah.
And what do you say to the student athletes at that point? This is like a month or two ago when the seasons were canceled, and I was just like, I don't even know what I'm going to share. But my message was simple. It's like, listen, lean into this uncertainty, control what you can control. So these guys that are playing like Bell and Moore, focus on the fundamentals, double down on getting better, stay positive. It was really just like basic one-on-one stuff, but it was like, listen, this stuff is you can't control that. So lean into what you can control. And that's getting better as a student, as an athlete, whether it's in the weight room or it's on the field and the film room. So my message was simple, like just double down on the fundamentals and it'll work out.
Yeah, I got to know, did you give Rondale any receiving tips?
No, that dude is sharp, man. He understands film better than most receivers in his age group right now. He's a wise mind beyond his years. Man, I told him, I was like, I wish I would have taken time when I was playing that. I would have gotten more into film work. He's gonna be just fine. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete, strong as hell, and he really gets the game and he digs in. Like he could dissect a lot of plays. We would talk a little football, and you could just tell he had some really good insights.
All right. Well, I can see over the years, have been in each other's presence a couple times, but I can see why they would pick you to address the team. Seth, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll do this again, and we'll make this an annual feature because I know you have a lot more to say about other things besides football. The business side of things is interesting as well. But thanks for taking the time to join us. And great stories. And like I said, number 84 will always be a Boilermaker legend. That's a good thing. When the head hits the pillow at night, you're always going to have that. So thanks again so much. And we'll look forward to having you on again. Okay, Gordon, we're going to take a couple-minute break. We'll bring Brian Newbert back on for segment 2 of Gold and Black Live.